Greetings, minions. Uncle Zach here. I have been promising you guys for a while now that I would record a vlog. And so I'm here and I'm recording it now. A lot of you have been asking me a lot of questions about my transition and how's it going. And I know that you guys are anxious to see, like, what's the deal? What's up with Uncle Zach? Well, as you can tell, my voice is much deeper and I'm really, really happy about it. Let's see what else. Some people say that they see changes in my face. I don't know that I see them, but maybe it's just because it's me. Um, I let's see. I've noticed that I don't get nearly as like off the cuff emotional. Like I don't like fly off the handle and cry a lot. That's good. Part of that might just be because I'm on antidepressants. Part of that might be because of the testosterone. I'm not sure. But I get a testosterone shot once every 2 weeks, so twice a month. And luckily, I don't have to administer them. Uncle Paul does that for me, which is awesome because I really, really can't stand needles. But there are certain things where it is worth the needle to have it, happen. So let's see what else. Oh, facial hair. Okay. You might notice that I'm nice and smooth, right? That's because I just shaved. I can actually grow facial hair. My facial hair is ridiculous. And let me tell you why. Okay, so like down here, I get this lovely bit of black right here, just black, and I get a very thick white mustache. Except I'm starting to over here. I'm starting to get little peppered black things. So it's like the black is creeping up the side of my face and taking over. Now over here, I'll get a couple of black hairs, but there's way too many gray ones, which is weird. It's so not fair. Like I've been waiting my entire life to have facial hair, and now it's gray because I'm a million years old. Anyway, over here, it comes in kind of red, which sucks. But so I'm like multicolored. I honestly, it looks like you took a whole bunch of people and just sewed their pieces of their faces together. That's what it looks like. So it's okay though. I don't mind because I know a lot of trans men are really looking forward to having facial hair and grow beards because it makes them look more masculine. Personally, I don't care. I will always shave because I like having a smooth face. Plus, I really love the act of shaving. It's just, there's something ritualistic about it, and it's something, it makes me feel manly, and I dig it, So things are going really well. When I went to St. Louis Comic Con for the very first time, I used the men's room. It was awesome and horrible. God. Okay, so like Jacob and Uncle Paul have been like preparing me forever about what the men's room is like. They're like, okay, it's awful, it smells, it's filthy, you don't want to touch anything. And when you walk in, you pretend that you are the only person in the room, no eye contact, get in, get your business done, wash your hands. Most people don't wash their hands, ew, and then get the hell out. Okay? Even if you're having a conversation as you walk in the door with your buddy, you stop talking the moment you walk through the door, just get in there, get out, and everybody pretends that nobody else is peeing. It's weird. Okay, it's very weird. But I went, and that was awesome because I felt all brave. Now, see, to me, I think I'm like this, like walking into the men's room. Uncle Paul actually says I was more like this. So he's probably more right about that, but I don't care because I used it and I felt all awesome afterwards. uh, However, I am the only reason I chose to do it there was because it was at a con, and con goers tend to be much more open-minded and less, I don't know, less hurtful, I guess is a word. I mean, there are like a million words I could use there, but they're more tolerant, so I chose to do it there. And personally, out in public, I will only go to the gender-neutral restrooms, so generally I don't use the bathroom out in public. I just don't. And it's uncomfortable and it's horrible, but unfortunately that's kind of the society we live in right now, and I'm looking for it to change because it is a dangerous thing for a trans person to use a restroom and to have someone react in not exactly the positive way, even though we are only there to pee. So, if you guys have any questions about me being transgender, you can always ask me, and I really don't care. Like, there are certain questions that you do not ask a transgender person. You do not ask them about their genitals. You do not ask them about their dead name, which is their real name. I hate when people say that. It's the name that they were given when they were born. You don't ask about those things. However, since I am a public figure, I'm sorry, I keep looking over here. It's my laptop. I have things on here I want to tell you about, but um, I'm okay with those questions because I want to educate you guys. So if there's anyone that you can ask me. Don't ask other trans people because you can be really, really hurtful and really offensive, and that's not cool because we all have to bond together. So actually, the reason I have my laptop up is because I told you guys on April 15th, before I did some more travel. In the last week, I've gone on 3 trips, all work, all very exhausting, and in like 2 weeks, I have major edits due on the book that will follow The Blood Between Us. So I'm a little tense right now, and everything's gonna be fine, and the edits are going really well, but I put a lot of pressure on myself, especially at the end, especially if there's a lot in the way of my edits, like travel. I find it very difficult to work when I'm traveling, so or to work effectively. So I asked you guys to leave me some questions because I know that I've been very me and book focused lately, and I want to make sure that I am more you focused because you guys are, after all, the most important thing about being in the Minion Horde. I mean, you are the Minion Horde, so yeah. Okay, so there's a lot of questions. I'm going to try to touch on as many as I possibly can because you deserve answers. And let's put on my old people glasses, my nerd glasses, because that's the happy nerd dance. I don't know, you know. All right, so how did you come to terms with yourself? How did you accept yourself? Because I'm going through something rough, and it's hard and it hurts. Okay, coming to terms with myself as far as my identity goes, as far as my gender identity goes, and my orientation, because I'm gay. I mean, you guys, most of you know that. But as far as coming to terms with being transgender, it took a long, long time. I really applaud anytime I hear someone really young having the balls to really come out and come to terms with it and say, hey, guess what? I am transgender. I was born assigned the wrong gender. I applaud them because I did not know. I can look back now at like pictures and things like that, and I can look back at moments in my life and I can go, oh, well, duh, you were totally trans this whole time. But for me, there was kind of an awakening. I've always known that something was different about me. Something was wrong, you know? But I could never put my finger on what. And I have one of my favorite authors at the time was going by Poppy Z. Bright. Lost Souls, awesome book, one of my faves, look it up. Well, he came out as trans, and his name is Billy Martin now. And I had stumbled upon his blog. It's like on LiveJournal, and I was reading his posts, and they really resonated with me. I mean, they really made me go, wow, that's exactly how I feel. And there's a word for it, and that word is transgender. And I was simultaneously incredibly excited and absolutely terrified because I knew I can never do that. I can never come out. I will lose everything. I will lose my husband. I will lose my children. I will lose my career. I will lose everything. And I felt like it was an incredibly selfish thing. And so it took me a very long time to be okay with it and to come out. But it was really a shock to the system because I was already in my 30s before I realized, oh my God, this is who I am. This is what I am. And it's funny because I always used to say, before I really realized that I was trans, I used to say that I always said, I'm a gay man trapped in a woman's body. And so being gay was always there, but for some reason I never really put the trans thing together. So my advice to you, if you're having a really hard time, if you're going through something rough, whatever you're going through, know that pain does not last forever. Know that there is an end. And my best advice to you is to find someone, preferably like a really great counselor, someone to talk to and really open up to, someone that you can count on won't judge you, and you can just lay everything out there and get some really good, solid guidance, because you can't solve everything on your own. So it's incredibly important. And please, whatever you do, don't hurt yourself, because it's not worth it. You're worth a lot more than that. Okay. How do you even start looking for a literary agent? I'm so close to finishing my first manuscript, and I'm hoping to make at least some pocket change for my novel. Oh, money. All right, so first off, I want to tell you, most authors don't make a lot of money. Several authors don't make any money. How you look for a literary agent. But if you do want to make money, the best route is to get a literary agent, a really reputable literary agent. Never pay to have your book published. And I know there are a lot of people out there that will disagree with me, and that's fine. That's your opinion. This is mine. Get a literary agent, because literary agents will take 15% of what they sell your books for, but it's of a larger amount because they know how to negotiate. They know the editors, they know the publishers, they know where you'd be a good fit. They can get it on the tables in front of the right people. So I highly advise you get a literary agent. One of the websites I tend to point people towards is agentquery.com. Agent, A-G-E-N-T, query, Query.com. It's this fantastic database that has like all of these agents, reputable agents, categorized. You type in, what your genre is and things like that, and it will give you a list of agents. Then take those names and go on the web and do some research on them. If you find authors that are repped by them, feel free to reach out to the authors and say, hey, what's your experience with this agent? Write your query letter, spend as much time in your query letter as you do on a manuscript, and make sure you have a really solid hook sentence to start your query letter with. For example, mine, for 8th grade bites, my hook sentence, or the first sentence in the query letter, the one to grab their attention, said, if you thought 8th grade was tough, try it with fangs and a fear of garlic. And that was the sentence that really grabbed my agent. So, just be really careful about your query letter, and get out there and definitely get an agent. Did you have an aha moment that led you to the realization that you're trans? Well, we kind of already talked about it. If it isn't too personal, that is, it's okay. I'm going through some stuff. Think your answer might help. So I kind of already talked about that one, so I'm going to skip over that. I'm getting married. Congratulations, Minion. That's wonderful. So question is, if I were to invite the whole Brewer clan, would you do me the honor of attending it? Honestly, I wish I could. I haven't been to a wedding in a very, very long time, and I would love to, but travel really, really limits when I can actually take time for myself and for my family. So unfortunately, I would have to decline, but I wish you all the best, all the most wonderful experiences, and all the joy that you can possibly have. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me that you asked. How much detail should an author add to the story, and how can they add important information while trying to make it flow with the story? Is it possible to make a character that doesn't have a specific gender? Actually, I'm going to answer that last one first. It is possible to make a character that doesn't have a specific gender. I would advise that you read David Levithan's Every Day. It's about a character called A. And so it's incredible. David Levithan, Every Day. Believe me, you read that, you're going to have all of your answers. How much detail should you add to the story? Really, it depends on the POV, on your point of view. There's a lot more detail, I feel like, when you're in like third person. I feel like could, because you're like, you can see everything from all different kinds of points of view. But when you're in first person, you can only see what the person, the main character, can see. Don't forget your other sentences too. Don't forget your other senses too. You know what I mean? What can they smell? What can they taste? Things like that. What can they feel? Because that detail really means a lot. Don't go all like Lord of the Rings on it though, because honestly, in my opinion, way overkill on the description. But just, trust your gut, and if it feels like you're dragging on and on discussing what their mom's drapes look like, then stop it. And luckily, if you have writer friends, they'll really honest writer friends, then they will be able to call you on it and say, hey, dude, I don't really give a crap about the drapes. Can we just get on with the story? If you feel bored or you feel stuck when you're reading your manuscript, your readers are going to feel bored or stuck. Okay, what's the best advice you can give to a budding author who is trying to make an ambush/betrayal not so obvious? Ooh, my twists. I love writing twists. The best advice I can give you is plant red herrings. Okay, plant something that is going to lead them down one path and then grab them and yank them into that other path. Take something, and if you know what your ending is going to be, if you know what your twist is going to be, and a lot of the times I don't even know what the twist is going to be, then flip it on its ear. Whatever they're going through, make it completely the opposite. You know what I mean? If you're like, oh my God, it is so this guy, it has to be this guy that did it. Make it somebody that's like, whoa, never would have counted on that person doing something like that. You know what I mean? Just, screw with them. That's what I do. Okay, let's see. Would Vlad live a normal life even though he kind of controls all humans, vampires, and slayers? If so, would he get bored of being normal and end up following in his father's footsteps? Ooh, good question. Honestly, I feel like that one's hard to answer. It's hard to answer because I plan on returning to Alicia someday. So, you know what? I'm not going to answer it. I'm sorry, I can't answer it, but, I do plan on going back to Alicia and writing about it. So you'll have your answer when I do that eventually someday. Have you ever had the problem where you're at your most creative when you're tired or emotional? Oh, yes, many, many times. Is it best to write then or remember the thoughts that pop in your head at those times and get them down later? I don't want to put pants on to head to the office to write something down. Okay, well, you know what? You don't have to wear pants anywhere, ever. No, that's not true. Actually, you do have to wear pants. But you don't have to go to the office to write it down. We have these things called pens. They're amazing. You probably have a smartphone, right? There's this awesome notes section. Jot things down. It doesn't have to be beautiful. Get it down so you don't forget it. Have a notebook or a notepad, something on you at all times, so that when those moments come and you are in the moment really feeling it, that's the best time to capture it, because then it's raw and it's real. You don't have to make it pretty. Just put down, bullet points of exactly what you are feeling, what your thought process is, and then later on work it into your manuscript, but capture it, because it's like a leaf on the wind. It'll just like, oh, that was so a Firefly reference. Like, but like a leaf on the wind, it's going to be something that can get away from you really quickly. So capture it in the moment if you can. This is going to be a really boring question. Oh man, no, I'm kidding. It's cool. Really boring question. But do you read fan fiction based on your own books? Do you write fan fiction yourself, or at least fantasies in extreme detail? I don't write fan fiction myself, or really fantasies or anything like that. But I mean, really, I write fantasies, but those actually are my books. So, but I do not read fan fiction based on my own books. And however, I am a huge supporter of fan fiction. I love when you guys write fan fiction. I think it's fantastic, especially when you write like the Vlad series of my books, Sold On Me, Why Not? Because once I write a book, and once I've finished a book, it becomes yours. It is now your story, your characters. You do with it as you will. And I'm a huge supporter of that. Plus, it's really a great way to dip your toe and get some good, flex your writer muscles. Your writer muscles, It's a really great way to do that, to exercise. And the reason I don't read it is because I am honestly worried that I will unconsciously take something from what you have done. So I don't want to do that. So, but please keep writing that fan fiction. It's awesome. Did you ever like science? Science, you say? Actually, I'm a huge fan of science. The menu goes on to say, I'm in nursing school and the subject is the hardest. Is the science subject. Any tips or tricks on surviving science? Anyone? As far as surviving science, study, 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 study. My thing is, I honestly think that we need to elect Neil deGrasse Tyson president of the world. and then like Bill Nye can be vice president of the world because they are like friggin' amazing and I love them so much. So yes, science is awesome. If you're in school and you're working really hard, work on your sciences, especially because they're incredibly, incredibly important to kind of wrap our head around exactly how things work. Actually, the girl is taking, they don't have a home ec anymore in school, which is so weird, in her school anyway. We had home ec where like you learn to bake brownies and things like that. And my daughter is taking a class called food science. So they're also baking brownies, but they're learning the science behind making brownies. It's freaking awesome. What do you think oh God, I need these things. Sometimes I forget. What do you think the hardest part of writing a book is? It depends on the book. Sometimes the hardest part is beginning. Sometimes the hardest part is ending. For me, I think the hardest part of writing a book is stopping when it comes to edits. It doesn't matter if the book is if the book is like completely a book. There's a reason I don't go back and read them once they're like this, and that's because I know that I will see things in it that I will deem flaws, and I will want to go back and fix them, and I can't at that point. So letting them go, that's the hardest part for me. Would you have fought for Asian or the White Witch? To quote Castiel, I do not understand that reference. Movie or TV adaptation for COVT. Need to push for that. Minions, you are bossy. And it happens to be super involved like G.R.R. Martin is with GOT. Oh yes, I'm sure it is very, very helpful. But you see, when you are G.R.R. Martin, you're like a literary god, kind of like when you're J.K. Rowling, and I am not that. Most writers, 99.999999992% people of writers do not get any say whatsoever in movie or TV adaptations. It just doesn't happen. COVT was optioned. I don't know. I think the option is still going. It was optioned, but I I don't think anything is going to come from it, and it's okay. I mean, I hope that it would. There are other books that I've written that I feel Vlad is very suited for a television series, very suited for a television series. But I feel like, as far as movie goes, I feel like The Cemetery Voices has a lot more potential to be a movie. I could definitely see that on the big screen. But it's all out of my control. Well, the only thing I can control is what I put on the page or the screen or whatever, and that's it. There's no pushing I can do. I have amazing film agents, and they do all the pushing. All I do is press the keys. Okay, so how did you come out to family? Well, I did, well, for Uncle Paul, I told him very directly, and it took me a long time, and I told him, and I was really worried and concerned, and he was like, nah, no big deal, and he was like, yeah, honestly, totally obvious that you're trans. Cool, got it. About 3 years later, I was at Phoenix Comic Con with my son, Jacob, and I had promised myself, before I leave, I'm going to tell Jacob that I'm trans. And so we were at our last meal on the last day of the con, and we're sitting there, and I said to him, I said, Jacob, I have to tell you something. And once again, being all smooth and cool, like I am. And he's like, what? What's going on? Are you okay? And I said, I am transgender. And he's like, okay. And later he tells me that his thought was, oh, I should probably act more surprised, because he already kind of knew. And it took me another full year before I actually told the girl, my daughter, and the reason I told her was it was time. Jacob and Paul had both said, look, you need to trust her and just tell her. And so I held her hand, and we sat on the couch, and I held her hand, and I was crying because I had this ridiculous notion that I was going to be stealing her mother away. And we're very close, and I didn't want to be responsible for her losing the female figure that she had been looking up to her entire life. And I told her, and she was like, oh, is that it? And she was totally fine. And then later she had actually told me that she had the same thought that Jacob did, like, oh, I should act more surprised. I already knew that. So coming out to them it was very hard for me, but it turned out to be easy and wonderful. Um, As for extended family, much of my family I'm estranged from, my parents and several of my siblings. But for the rest of my family, I wrote an email, a really detailed email. I wanted to get it just right, and I don't live anywhere near them. They all live in Michigan. I wanted to get it just right, and I wanted to give them time to think about it before they reacted. So at the very end of the email, I said, please just let this soak in for a few days and everything before answer. I want you to have some time to adjust. And, it's everyone's surprised me. It's been really positive, so I'm really fortunate. Even online, there's only been one guy that was even remotely negative, and I had no idea who he was. So he was just a random dude on the internet, and. Okay, so, um, Nacho or Cool Ranch? What am I, some kind of psycho freak? Nacho, of course. God, you Cool Ranch people. Yeah, that's my hate for the day. And then somebody posted an awesome trans video that I will watch later. But actually, that is all the questions, which is awesome. So, I think we have gone like way over our time. It's like 26 minutes long. I don't know if this will fit on Facebook. If it doesn't, I will have Uncle Paul split it into part 1 and part 2. Um, there is one more thing that Minions asked me if I would do. And so since we're probably going to be splitting this up anyway, I'm going to do it right now. Someone asked me a long time ago, I had story time for Minions. And it meant a lot to me, and I think it meant a lot to you guys too. So we're going to have story time again. And it's been requested that I once more, and I think it will mean something very different now, that I read And She Sparkled by Joan Steffen. There once was a little girl, and she sparkled. She lived in her magnificence, singing and dancing wherever life took her. In the morning, a finger of sunlight would reach gently through the blinds to tickle her awake, and she would leap from her bed, looking for joy wherever she could find it. And she found it, with her toes in the grass, her tiny hands around a dandelion, her hair tangled from the possibilities of fur fun that swirled around her. She was enough. One morning, though, the sunlight felt sharp, stabbing at sleepy eyes. A little grumble escaped her mouth as she stumbled out of bed. She did dance that day, but not as joyfully, not as she had the day before. And that night, she punched at her pillow, waiting for sleep to take her away from the day. Away. Slowly, the people around her noted with pride that the little girl was growing up. Learning to act mature is what they called it. They were doing their jobs well. And so the little girl became a big girl, nicely folding her hands in her lap as she sat very still, wondering why she felt so alone. There was still a part of her that felt like dancing and singing, but that wasn't acceptable most of the time. It might disturb someone. It might not be appropriate. It most certainly wasn't useful. So as the girl grew, she would lock the door of her room when the others left and sing and dance and visit the little girl inside, being careful to be a little quiet so she could hear if anyone returned. The girl grew and became even more dutiful. No one saw her dance. No one heard her sing. She memorized the answers others gave her for who she was. And soon, it seemed, even she forgot her little girl. To be sure, there were days when it looked as though the girl was happy, but the smiles were usually on the outside and not on the inside. Life went on for the girl, now a woman, and her life looked a lot like everyone else's. She was told that was success. Life, they said, is all about fitting in. Don't ask questions. It makes us all a little uncomfortable, and you don't want that. So the woman spent her days waking up, and waiting to fall asleep. She wasn't aware the little girl was patiently waiting for her, reaching out in small ways every day and every night. But one morning she felt a familiar tickle. The sunlight played on her face for a moment, and it made her smile. An energy she hadn't felt in some time lifted her out of bed. She sensed something familiar, and yet somehow it was new. That day was more ordinary than not, but from time to time she was filled with hope, which rose in waves and then disappeared into the ordinary. She went to bed that night happier than usual, but slightly confused at what the day had been about. The next day dawned, and the woman again sensed something familiar and exciting in the sunlight. In fact, she felt so alive in that moment. She danced out of bed and down the hall, silently, so no one would hear her. Moments in the day found herself quietly humming to herself, dancing in her dreams while she lived the life she thought she should. Forgot to show the picture. She went to bed that night, not as anxious to sleep as anxious to be awake again. The moments went on that way with joy dancing just below the surface of the woman. As the years went by, the woman became bolder, discovering things about herself she had somehow forgotten. She spent time every day hungrily uncovering pieces of a little girl from long ago. She decided she could no longer only be the person others expected to see. She was that, but she was so much more. She had always been so much more. She decided to share who she was with the world and with herself. There was magic to be remembered. And there was that urgent and now familiar rhythm that kept her dancing and looking for new songs to sing. Some people didn't really like that. They had come to depend on her the way she used to be. Now she made some of them uncomfortable, even angry. Are people really supposed to listen to their own rhythm and dance, they asked? Or should they march in the quiet lines laid out for them? It didn't matter to her. She didn't want to tell anyone else what to do. The only thing that mattered to the woman was the voice of the little girl living in her heart, whispering softly that she was indeed enough. She was magnificent. And she sparkled. I sparkle now, minions. I hope you sparkle too. So remember, be good, be safe. Uncle Zach loves you.